The Marvin Gaye mystery finally solved and isn't good. The world adored Marvin Gaye for his soul-stirring music, but behind the fame was a tangled web of secrets. After years in the shadows, the truth has stepped into the light, and it's nothing to celebrate. Join us as we unravel the shocking mystery behind Marvin Gaye's music. The truth finally comes to light. 4 decades after Marvin Gaye's passing, there might be new music from the iconic artist on the way. This surprising update comes from a Belgian musician named Charles Dumoulin, who once hosted the R&B star at his home in Ostend. Dumoulin has unveiled a previously unseen collection of costumes, letters, notebooks, and numerous recordings that had been hidden away for years. Alex Trapaniers, a Belgian lawyer and business partner of Dumoulin's family, in an interview with the BBC, said that they could open a time capsule there and share Marvin's music with the world. And it was very clear. Gaye, who was tragically shot by his father in 1984 during a domestic dispute, left these items with Dumoulin's family in Belgium, where they have preserved this musical history in their home for over 40 years. However, the future of these demos and belongings remains uncertain. Trapaniers explained that they belong to the family because they were left in Belgium 42 years ago. He sifted through the massive collection of recordings, identifying 66 demos of new material spread across 30 tapes. He noted that some of them were complete, and a few were as good as the Sexual Healing album since they were created around the same time. He also mentioned that there was one song that after just 10 seconds of listening, he found the music stuck in his head all day, the lyrics replaying in my mind like a moment of planetary alignment. Gaye left behind a treasure trove of costumes, notebooks, letters, and demo tapes in Ostend, Belgium over 40 years ago. While the world might be eager to enjoy the collection of songs from the late singer, which the BBC called a spine-tingling experience, it's not as straightforward as it appears. Trapaniers mentioned that Marvin gave it to them and said they could do whatever they wanted with it, and he never came back. And that's significant. Since Gaye gave the collection of items to the late Dumoulin, it legally belongs to his family, as per Trapaniers. And Belgian law states that after 30 years, anything is legally yours. Trapaniers is considering the chance of reaching a compromise with Gaye's family so that the music can be shared with the public. However, that law doesn't apply to intellectual property, which includes music, meaning the Dumoulin family owns the songs but lacks the rights to publish them. The BBC reports that it's uncertain how Gaye's children, Marvin III, Nona, and Frankie, have responded to this discovery, but lawyers for 2 of the 3 heirs have been informed about the collection overseas. Trapaniers thinks a compromise could be possible with the Gaye family in the US, who might be able to publish the music. He said that he believed both sides could gain, the family of Marvin and the collection in the hands of Dumoulin's heirs, if they could collaborate and find the right people in the industry, like Mark Ronson or Bruno Mars, noting that he was not there to make suggestions, but to say they should listen to it together and create the next album together. This wouldn't be the first instance of a legendary artist releasing music from decades ago. However, Trapaniers warned that the music also risks being misused. The Dumoulin family is allowed to sell the collection, he mentioned, and there's a chance that a buyer might claim the tracks as their own. Ethically, Trapanier continued, he would prefer to collaborate with the family, but that was a nightmare for them. That someone from a wealthy country comes in, they strike a deal, and the collection ends up leaving their country. And while the truth about Marvin Gaye's mystery has left fans stunned, his greatest legacy isn't just in his music, it lives on through his children. Let's take a look at the ones who keep his memory alive, carrying the Gaye legacy. The Prince of Soul became a dad for the first time when he and his first wife, Anna Gordy, adopted their son Marvin III in the 1960s. They got married in 1963, but divorced in 1977. Later that same year, Gaye married Janice Hunter. Together, they had 2 kids, daughter Nona and son Frankie. However, Gaye and Janice separated 4 years later and finalized their divorce in 1982. April 1st, 2025 marked 41 years since the Motown legend's passing. At that time, Marvin III was in his late teens, Nona was 9, and Frankie was about 8. Even though the younger kids didn't have much time with their dad, Janice worked hard to keep his memory alive, both at home and in public. Nona shared in a statement after Janis's passing in 2022 that from the moment she met her father, she was introduced to his view of a world that was hurting, and she did everything she could to honor his legacy after he was taken from them too soon. She cherished every moment to talk about every word and every note of his music, wanting everyone to know the man she loved. Two of the singer's children, Marvin III and Nona, followed in his footsteps into the entertainment industry, while Frankie chose to live a life away from the limelight. Gaye and Gordy adopted their son Marvin III in the late 60s. Growing up with both parents deeply involved in the music industry, he was always surrounded by it. Their home even had its own music studio. Marvin III prioritizes his father's legacy, and in 1987, he proudly stood next to his mother to accept Marvin Gaye's posthumous induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2013, he gained more public attention when the family estate took legal action against Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams over their song Blurred Lines, which was similar to Gaye's Got to Give It Up. In an interview, he expressed his desire to see his father get credit for his work. During the same interview, Marvin's lawyer, David Rudich, disclosed that Marvin was facing serious health issues. He stated that Marvin was suffering from diabetes and he needed a kidney, so if the publicity that comes out of it causes someone to come forward to help save the life of the son of the famous Marvin Gaye, then it would be a good thing. The estate won the lawsuit in 2018, receiving $5 million, according to Billboard. Marvin III also managed to find a kidney donor. After 7 potential donors were not suitable matches, Rick Green saw Marvin's plea and reached out. In May 2014, Green successfully donated his kidney to Marvin. The oldest Gaye sibling married Wendy Gaye in March 2010. 3 years later, he released an EDM track titled Can't Take My Eyes Off You, featuring his then-wife in the music video. However, their relationship hit a rough patch in January 2023 when Marvin III was arrested on a misdemeanor domestic violence charge following an alleged physical confrontation with his wife and her cousin. The previous couple finalized their divorce in 2024. Around that same period, a woman named Jane Doe filed a lawsuit against Marvin for assault, battery, and false imprisonment related to incidents from January 2023. In reply to the lawsuit, he claimed the accusations were untrue and that they never occurred. Gaye and Janis celebrated the arrival of their first child, a daughter named Nona, in September 1970. Nona was only 9 years old when her father passed away, so she learned about him through her mother and by listening to his music. She shared that she didn't understand the work. She was too young when she grew older, and she started listening to it and hearing how troubled he was about the state of the world and his life. It made her cry. Nona pursued a career in music like her father, releasing her first album, Love for the Future, with Atlantic Records at just 18 years old. The album included tracks like I'm Overjoyed and The Things That We All Do for Love. To keep her father's legacy alive, Nona put out an album titled Inner City Blues in 1995, which reinterpreted Gaye's songs and featured big-name artists such as Madonna, Stevie Wonder, and Bono. She used her influence to pay tribute to her father, expressing that it made her really happy that people still love him as much as they always have, even more. Now he is gone. Nona worked with and dated the music icon Prince. Together, they recorded 4 songs before parting ways. After that, she pursued an acting career, appearing in movies like Ali and Crash, and played the role of Z in 2 films from the Matrix series. In her personal life, Nona is a mother to at least 1 child, a son named Nolan Pence, who shares his middle name with his famous grandfather. Gaye and Janis had their son Frankie Christian in 1975, naming him after Marvin's brother, who was also a musician. Although Frankie keeps a low profile, he did join his siblings in releasing an open letter regarding the Blurred Lines lawsuit in 2013. And while his children have worked to protect his legacy, Hollywood once tried to capture it on the big screen. But the journey was far from smooth. Let's take a look into the attempted biopic of Marvin Gaye, the biopic that never made it to the big screen. There have been multiple efforts to turn Gaye's life story into a feature film. In February 2006, it was reported that Jesse L. Martin was set to play Gaye in a biopic called Sexual Healing, named after Gaye's song of the same title. The film was supposed to be directed by Lauren Goodman and produced by James Gandolfini and Alexandra Ryan. It was intended to portray the last 3 years of Gaye's life. Later on, other producers like Jean-Luc Van Damme, Frederick Bestall, and Jimmy de Brabant joined the project, leading to Goodman's replacement by Julian Temple. Lenny Kravitz was nearly cast as Gaye. The script was meant to be penned by Matthew Broughton. Focus Features was set to distribute the film, which was scheduled for release on April 2014, marking the 30th anniversary of Gaye's passing. However, this plan never materialized, and it was announced in June 2013 that Focus Features would no longer be involved with the Gaye biopic. In 2008, it was revealed that F. Gary Gray was going to direct a biopic titled Marvin. The script was to be written by C. Gabby Mitchell, and the film was to be produced by David Foster and Duncan McGillivray, with Ryan Hepp as a co-producer. According to Gray, the film would encompass Gaye's entire life, from his rise at Motown to his defiance of Berry Gordy in recording What's Going On, all the way to his passing. Cameron Crowe had been working on a biopic called My Name is Marvin. This film was supposed to be a Sony presentation with Scott Rudin producing. Will Smith and Terrence Howard were both considered for the role of Marvin Gaye. However, in August 2011, Crowe confirmed that he had decided to drop the project, stating that they were working on the Marvin Gaye movie, which is called My Name is Marvin, but the time just wasn't right for that movie. Some of Gaye's family members, including his ex-wife Janice and his son Marvin III, voiced their disapproval of a biopic. In July 2016, it was announced that a documentary film about Gaye would be released the next year, exploring his life and the creation of his album What's Going On. This film would be produced by Noah Media Group and Greenlight, and the producers Gabriel Clark and Torquil Jones described it as the defining portrait of the visionary artist and his impeccable album. The documentary will feature unseen footage of Gaye, and his family has given their approval for it. In November 2016, it was revealed that actor Jamie Foxx was set to produce a limited biopic series about Gaye's life. This series received approval from Gaye's family, including his son Marvin III, who was to be an executive producer, along with Berry Gordy Jr. In 2018, it was reported that American rapper Dr. Dre was in discussions to produce a biopic about Gaye. In June 2021, it was announced that Warner Bros. Pictures had greenlit the film that Dre would be producing, which would be directed by Alan Hughes and is expected to be released in 2023. In April 2025, Terrence Howard shared that he had previously turned down a role to play Gaye in a biopic because he was concerned about having to kiss another man. And while Hollywood struggled to capture his story on film, Marvin himself had already told it best through his music. Every note, every lyric, every beat was a piece of Marvin's soul. Let's explore how he crafted them, how Marvin Gaye redefined music. Gaye began his journey in music as a drummer, doing session work while he was with Harvey Fuqua and during his early years at Motown. Over time, his skills expanded to include playing the piano, keyboards, synthesizers, and organ. He also incorporated various percussion instruments like bells, finger cymbals, box drums, glockenspiels, vibraphones, bongos, congas, and cabasas. This was particularly clear when he gained creative control in his later years at Motown, allowing him to produce his own albums. Besides being a talented drummer, Gaye also took to the TR-808, a drum machine that gained popularity in the early 80s, using its sounds for his Midnight Love album. On stage, he primarily played the piano, but he would also drum occasionally. As a kid, Gaye was heavily influenced by his father, who was a minister. He later shared this with biographer David Ritz, and in various interviews, often noting how much his father's sermons impacted him. His first significant musical influences came from doo-wop groups like the Moonglows and the Capris. According to Gaye's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame page, the Capris song God Only Knows was crucial to his musical awakening. Regarding the Capris song, Gaye remarked that it fell from the heavens and struck him right in the eyes. So much soul, so much pain. He connected with the story, especially how only the Lord can truly understand the hearts of lonely kids in love. Gaye's primary musical inspirations included Rudy West from the Five Keys, Clyde McPhatter, Ray Charles, and Little Willie John. He viewed Frank Sinatra as a significant influence on his aspirations. Additionally, Gaye was inspired by the singing styles of Billy Eckstine and Nat King Cole. As his career at Motown progressed, Gaye drew motivation from his label mates like David Ruffin of The Temptations and Levi Stubbs of the Four Tops. Their more powerful voices encouraged Gaye and his producer to pursue a similar sound in tracks like I Heard It Through the Grapevine and That's the Way Love Is. Later in life, Gaye acknowledged the impact of Ruffin and Stubbs, saying that he noticed something in their voices that his own voice was missing. He further explained that the music of the Temps and Tops reminded him that many women want to feel the strength of a real man when they listen to music. Gaye had an impressive 4-octave vocal range. In his early days with the Marquis and Harvey and the New Moon Glows, as well as his first few recordings with Motown, Gaye primarily sang in the baritone and tenor ranges. He switched to a raspy tone for his gospel-influenced early hits like Stubborn Kind of Fellow and Hitchhike. Writer Eddie Holland noted that he was the only singer he had ever heard known to take a song of that nature that was so far removed from his natural voice where he liked singing and do whatever it took to sell that song. In tracks like Pride and Joy, Gaye showcased 3 different vocal ranges, starting in his baritone range, then using a lighter tenor in the verses, and finally reaching a gospel style in the chorus. Holland also remarked that Gaye's voice was one of the sweetest and prettiest voices you ever wanted to hear. While he acknowledged that ballads and jazz were his basic soul, he emphasized that Gaye had the ability to take a roughhouse rock and roll, blues, R&B, any kind of song and make it his own, later declaring Gaye as the most versatile vocalist he had ever collaborated with. In the late 1960s, Gaye switched up his singing style after being encouraged to adopt a sharper, raspy tone, particularly in his work with Norman Whitfield. At first, Gaye wasn't a fan of this new approach, feeling it was beyond his capabilities, but he mentioned he was into being producible. After listening to artists like David Ruffin and Levi Stubbs, Gaye began to cultivate what he referred to as his tough man voice, stating that he developed a growl. In the DVD liner notes for Marvin Gaye, Rob Bowman noted that by the early 1970s, Gaye had created 3 distinct voices: his smooth, sweet tenor, a growling rasp, and an unreal falsetto. Bowman also pointed out that the recording of the single What's Going On was the first to incorporate all 3 voices, as Marvin took a groundbreaking approach to his recordings by layering various contrapuntal background vocal lines on separate tracks, each one conceived and sung in isolation by him. Bowman observed that Gaye's multi-tracking of his tenor and other vocal styles summoned up what might be termed the ancient art of weaving. Before he worked on the What's Going On album, Gaye recorded a cover of Abraham, Martin and John, which became a hit in the UK in 1970. Even though the Temptations and other Motown artists produced some politically charged and socially aware music, they were often advised against exploring political and social themes, as it might alienate mainstream pop audiences. At the start of his career, Gaye was influenced by social events like the Watts riots in 1965 and once wondered how he could keep singing love songs with everything falling apart around him. When Gaye reached out to Gordy in the Bahamas about his desire to create protest music, Gordy replied that it was just silly and he was going too far. Gaye found inspiration in the Black Panther Party and supported their initiatives, such as delivering free meals to families in need. However, he did not agree with the violent methods the Panthers used to combat oppression, as Gaye's messages in many of his political songs were peaceful. The lyrics and music of What's Going On address and highlight issues, including racism, police violence, drug problems, environmental concerns, anti-war sentiments, and black empowerment. Gaye was motivated to create this album due to events like the Vietnam War, the race riots in Detroit, and the Kent State shootings, along with the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. When Gaye showed Gordy the What's Going On album, Gordy worried that Gaye was jeopardizing his reputation. After the album became a hit, Gaye attempted to release a follow-up album called You're the Man. Unfortunately, the title track only achieved moderate success, leading Gaye and Motown to put the album on hold. Several of Gaye's unreleased tracks that comment on social issues, like The World is Rated X, were later included in posthumous compilation albums. An AllMusic writer would go on to describe What's Going On as an album that not only redefined soul music as a creative force, but also expanded its impact as an agent for social change. You're the Man was eventually released on March 2019 by Motown, Universal Music Enterprises, and Universal Music Group. The What's Going On album also marked a significant first for both Motown and R&B music. Gaye and his team created the album as a song cycle, smoothly transitioning from one song to another, which gave the album a more unified feel compared to traditional R&B albums that often included filler tracks. This innovative approach would go on to influence artists like Stevie Wonder and Barry White, making the concept album format a staple in the 1970s R&B music. Concept albums typically revolve around a single theme or a series of themes related to the album's main idea. Let's Get It On followed the suite form structure of What's Going On, as did Gaye's subsequent albums like I Want You, Here, My Dear, and In Our Lifetime. Even though Gaye wasn't politically active outside of his music, he became a prominent figure for social change and inspired many through his artistic contributions. Marvin Gaye has been referred to as the top seller of soul music. In his book, Mercy, Mercy Me, The Art, Loves, and Demons of Marvin Gaye, Michael Eric Dyson portrayed Marvin as someone who went beyond the limits of rhythm and blues like no other artist had before. After his passing, the New York Times characterized Gaye as an artist who merged the soul music of the urban environment with the rhythm of traditional gospel singers, becoming a significant influence in pop music. Additionally, the article credited Gaye with fusing the heartfelt essence of gospel music, the charm of soft soul and pop, and the vocal artistry of a jazz vocalist. His recordings for Motown during the 1960s and 70s played a crucial role in defining the label's iconic sound. His collaboration with Motown earned him the titles Prince of Soul and Prince of Motown. Critics noted that Gaye's music represented the evolution of black music from raw rhythm and blues through refined soul to the political consciousness of the 1970s and a greater focus on personal and politics afterwards. As a Motown artist, Gaye was one of the first to break free from the constraints of its production system, paving the way for Stevie Wonder. Gaye's recordings had a lasting impact on R&B, influencing the emergence of subgenres like Quiet Storm and neo-soul. Barry White, Stevie Wonder, Frankie Beverly, and many others have mentioned how much Gaye's music influenced them. Eddie Murphy, for his Oscar-nominated performance as James Thunder Ely in the movie Dreamgirls, copied Gaye's fashion from the 1970s. In a 1991 update of his biography on Gaye, David Ritz noted that since 1983, Marvin's name has been brought up in a respectful way on at least 7 top 10 hit songs. Gaye's name has appeared in the titles of various hits, such as Big Sean's Marvin Gaye and Chardonnay, and Charlie Puth's first hit, Marvin Gaye, which features Meghan Trainor. The hit True by Spandau Ballet also references listening to Marvin all night long.